My man, Mike Hambright, joining us on the road today in Illinois. What's going on, Mike?
What's up, Carlos? Yeah, I'm in Illinois, so it's a little colder than what I'm used to in Texas, but is what it is.
Yeah, a lot colder here in Baltimore, but I was super excited to chat with you on the Investor Machine side, the webinar that we did, and then also interview on the podcast, the 80/20 show, which I'm going to have a lot of stuff for you because I know that you're very methodical with really just your whole real estate career, but a lot of how Investor Machines like methodology is for lead generation. So we want to talk about that a lot. But most of you guys know Mike already. He's a just a beast, well-known guy, really well-respected guy in the investing industry. And he's the founder of the InvestorFuel mastermind, which is actually meeting in a couple weeks in Arizona. 150, 170 plus companies there. Amazing, amazing people I've known through the 4 years. Actually, congratulations. That's a little over 4 years now that you've had
Yeah,
that
just over
going.
4 years. Yeah, that's right.
That's wild. That's wild. I
Yeah,
definitely remember tour. I
flying
remember
by.
definitely remember that first year, just people being in it and loving it. Um, but yeah, he's done a ton of different investing stuff, single family, more so getting into multifamily stuff now, and even partnering with some people that are in his mastermind. And he's also the co-founder of Investor Machine, which I'll let you speak to that to give an intro on Investor Machine, Investor Fuel, and yourself. But he's a co-founder with Jason Lewis. So a lot to unpack. I'm going to kick it back to Mike to kind of go through that with you guys.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's kind of funny when you look at you say all those things. It's like it seems like a lot, but at the time it's like a path, and it's just like then
Yeah.
I went here, then I did that, then I went here, and it all seems to make sense. But the story wasn't written in advance. It was kind of as you say, unpacked as time goes by, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I think just I'll do it this quick because a lot of folks might know who we are already, and I want to get into the meat of
Hmm.
our conversation today. But I started real estate investing in 2000, really kind of 2007, 2008. So kind of my wife and I both left corporate America and dove headfirst into real estate investing in 2008 when the proverbial shit was hitting the fan and everybody thought we were crazy for getting in. Honestly, we didn't plan it this way, but that there probably wasn't a better time to get started in
Hmm.
real estate investing. And so we worked really hard and we just crushed it for a lot of years, maybe flipping 65, 70 plus houses a year, mostly in the Dallas Fort Worth market, actually almost everything in the Dallas Fort Worth market. And just did that for years. And then, as time goes by with any business, there starts to be some kind of scope creep. So it first started with probably within the first year, adding a couple rentals. And next thing you know, there's more rentals going on. So now we have a rental company and then I got into coaching and started doing just a tremendous amount of coaching, actually. So then I have like a coaching business, and things just kind of got bolted on as we went along, right? Um, we won't get into the details, but I helped build kind of the largest franchise system in the country nationally, and then left all that about 5.5 years ago, sold off all my interests in that. And that opened up the door for me to do like some new things. So that was really kind of the beginning of when I started my Investor Fuel Mastermind because I've always been like a connector. I've always been a community guy.
Hmm.
We won't tell the whole story. I'm coming up with at this next Investor Fuel event. Gosh, none of our members even know this. So if they hear it, this will be new to them. They don't even know this. We're doing something that's kind of like TED Talks, but we're calling them Fuel Talks. And we've got a few members that are giving a presentation. And my kind of one thing to them was like, don't talk about real estate. Just talk about your backstory and all
Hmm.
the stuff that people have known you for years, but they've never heard this part. And so one of my story is going to be around being an entrepreneur, starting kind of on the playground in fifth grade of like selling marbles and candy and stuff like that. But when I was in, high school and college, I was like throwing parties and selling cups and all that stuff. So I've always been the person that kind of pulled people together and kind of built community, and that's a big part of what defines me today. And Investor Fuel was like a big step in that direction in terms of the real estate investor community and kind of above and beyond coaching. I've been doing a lot of coaching, and I really realized that I get a lot more joy out of working with experienced investors instead of brand new investors because there's a lot of mindset stuff. Like it's just easier for me to help somebody go from 20 deals a year to 60 than it is to get somebody from 0 to 1
Hmm.
because there's so many mindset issues there about does this really work? Should I quit my job? Is this marketing going to work? And there's just all these kind of challenges. And so I've done that for a long time, but I really got a lot of joy out of being around more what I would call peers, right? And
Hmm.
so that was the beginning of Investor Fuel. And as you said, we've been doing that for about 4.5 years now. And even that's evolved inside of itself with having a multifamily group in addition to our large, like single family groups. And then, what I kept hearing, even inside of InvestorFuel with professional investors, was the same thing that I heard from new investors, is that just kind of realizing their biggest challenge was lead generation. It's always been the biggest challenge, and it's harder now than it has been in a long time. And so with newbies, we used to teach them exactly what to do. We're going to show you how to do it. With more experienced investors, we would talk about it. But I sense that like more experienced investors just have a lot more going on, and many of them are trying to do everything. Like that's the plight of a single family investor, is they're usually, you could bring in staff or people to help with this, but they're responsible as a company for running like 3 or 4 companies. Like marketing and lead gen is its own company, acquisitions is its own company, dispositions is its own company. And so these are like, separate divisions almost. And a lot of real estate investors are trying to do it all. And, lead generation in this cycle, this past kind of cycle of it being a seller's market, is lead generation is tougher than ever. And so we came up with a way to use data and gather data in a very unique way that honestly nobody else is doing, certainly not to the scale that we are, and then provide a done-for-you lead generation service, which is mostly direct mail and then some skip tracing too. But we put a lot of focus on finding very, very hard to get data. We kind of do list stacking on steroids, and then we provide a completely done-for-you service to where people just need to pay a bill once a month and not much else to do besides answer the phones.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Yeah, the businesses and everything that you've come across and built on your path is all symbiotic stuff, and there's a lot of overlap where a lot of people in InvestorFuel will be using InvestorMachine to do their lead gen for us. Not too dissimilar from like us with InvestorFuse and I'm wearing the shirt today, the 80/20 Academy, where we have a lot of members in our mastermind that do that. What we talk about in the 80/20 Academy speaks well to InvestorMachine, because typically we break into 2 different buckets of problems: lead generation and lead conversion. For the most part, from a skill set and personality set, most investors are pretty good. At least they're pretty savvy with sales, negotiation, and being able to sell stuff on the back end. But the problem that they have is they may not necessarily be marketers. So it's a lot smaller percentage of marketers. And if they are good at marketing, it might be a challenge to manage both. So I've always been a fan of outsourcing at least part of your marketing, which leads nice into, and anything that's methodical and always being improved is gonna rate highly for me. So I'd love to hear more about InvestorMachine. And a lot of it, which we've talked before, Mike, is like, and I'm sure you get asked this on a higher scale than I do, because you talk to a ton of people and have been around for a while, but it seems like everybody's always trying to find the next new marketing strategy or that next new list or like that, when it's really just doing things more consistently, little things more consistently, and always looking to optimize and get more methodical in your operations, which is exactly what InvestorMachine does.
Yeah, I think the key is, and real estate investors too are attracted to shiny objects, right? So
100%.
there have been some things, and I don't want to say like texting and cold calling; those things have worked really well. They still work really well for a lot of people, but they're under the microscope for sure as to whether that's going to, those are getting challenged right now. I know some people, very specific people, that are in lawsuits and stuff, and so more of that stuff is starting to happen. And I don't want those things to happen, but one thing about mail is the mail is simply just never going to go away. It's tied to the government. They're not the best at delivering stuff. It's not on time anymore. What other entity ever in history has raised their prices and come out and said that we're going to deliver the mail slower at the same time? Like, who could do that besides the government, right? But it's reliable, and it allows us to highly target people instead of kind of spraying and praying. And so, when I first started, and acquisition cost on a deal is a fraction of what it is today. Like, you could be sloppy. Real estate investors were notorious for being sloppy, but they're still making 20, 30 grand on a deal. And so if it cost me an extra couple $1,000s to get a deal, it wasn't a big deal. But now it is. It's more, you need to be a little bit more methodical. And, well, we can talk about our approach and kind of how we do things, but also just the consistency. Like, we operate with clockwork consistency, where we're preparing somebody's order like a month in advance. We're like finalizing a bunch of stuff with our print houses and vendors and stuff. and then we drop it weekly, just like clockwork. So people don't have to think about it. And when I used to do my own mail, and this will resonate with probably some listeners here, is it's pretty common that you're like halfway through the month and you find out that you forgot to order your mail, or somebody in your team forgot to order it, and you're like, oh crap, we need to get that out. And so you just rush. It's super inconsistent, and we already have inconsistent results in this business. It's already a roller coaster, right? And so that would kind of make it even worse. And on top of that, what a lot of real estate investors would do is we would, you see people post it on Facebook, like who has the cheapest skip tracing?
Yeah.
Where can I buy the cheapest list? Like people are always looking for the cheapest thing. And that costs you money in the long run. So for most things, you get what you pay for. Like, can people, build their own CRM? You guys know that they can, right? But they can go get a blank Podio or something else and kind of build it out. But that's not the same as what you guys offer, right? And so you can go the cheap route, but there are consequences to that, and there's a side effect of that. So inevitably, and I'll tell you, maybe you've seen this, I get text messages for houses that I haven't even owned for 3 years of people still trying to buy them. I'm like, where did they get this list from? Is somebody still selling that? Or are they just like, well, we have these old lists over time that they don't even know what they have. It's just a whole bunch of spreadsheets. So they slam them together and they start marketing to them because it feels like it's inexpensive. But the truth is like, your marketing is the waste of spending mail or skip tracing or people's time or whatever to market to people that don't even own the property anymore is super wasteful. And so we cut a lot of that out. Like we remove solds, like real time. We actually have a relationship with the post office now where when mail gets returned, we know about it before they even get the return mail. We can remove it from our software that we built out before the person even gets it back. We're like, just throw it in the trash. We've already got it back and we can skip trace it for you too and give that to you tomorrow. Like, so we're just kind of behind the scenes making things super efficient. And I'll pause there and we can talk about that a little bit if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure. Quick bookmark question. For those that are interested in the InvestorMachine, but they may want to like cold call the records as well. What's the best way that would be accomplished?
Through us?
Yeah.
So we stack data, and there are list stackers out there, but we kind of do it on steroids, and I can talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, for our customers, we deliver either done for you direct mail or skip tracing of that list of the most motivated people that we've kind of churned out with our data gathering. So we have about 80 full-time data miners now that just gather data all day, every day in the markets where we have members that we support and operate. So we're getting data like hot off the presses. And in fact, we give them, we have an option to do something we call hot sheets. Every Monday morning, they can get a skip trace list of all the new data points that have popped up in the past week. And it's just spoon fed to them or whoever on their team needs to get that list the fastest. So these are people that like just filed for probate, just had, we've got about 40 different criteria that we go after, lots of different liens, IRS liens, mowing liens, city liens, ISD liens, all that stuff. Recent divorce. And so we've kind of realized over time we were gathering data and we had this great push to like move faster. How do we move faster and start getting a hold of people as fast as possible? And mail is not it. Like, so for those that want to skip trace and cold call or text message, we're getting that data real time and pushing it to our members real time because we're trying to get there before the competition does, essentially.
Love that. Yeah, I just wanted to get that in there because I know a lot of people would want to be cold calling and texting as well. Everything is in the show notes for you guys on InvestorMachine as well as InvestorFuel. So definitely feel free to click that open while you're hearing Mike here. What did we want to go through next as far as InvestorMachine? 100 full-time data miners.
I'd love to just tell people what we're doing because I think there's value that somebody else can do it. You should do this yourself if we're not doing it. So that's one thing about us is we're like completely transparent about what it is that we do. It's just a lot of work. And so why do that yourself? I mean, essentially, most of our members pay us $1,000 a month after they've joined to manage this on an ongoing basis, plus the cost of advertising. So you couldn't even come close to hiring a competent marketing manager that could do all this for $1,000 a month. So, at the end of the day, we take kind of base data. And so we basically subscribe to data at a national level, every piece of real estate, and we refresh it monthly. So we know all the changes of what's sold, what's changed hands, things like that. So I won't say anything negative about any of the big kind of data houses, but That's where we start, and that's kind of where they finish. We start with that base data, and then we build on top of it. So we start to layer in things like I said, there's about 40 different lists we go after, from probates, mowing liens, tax delinquent, recent divorce. We go after arrest records. We have people that are looking in our markets at distressed rentals through Zillow and a lot of other places, like looking for rentals that are distressed and trying to contact those people. I mean, we're scouring newspapers, websites, county records, all sorts of stuff to find some indication of distress, right? And then we put that into our software that effectively list stacks on steroids. So there's some great list stackers out there if people want to do it themselves. Obviously, you have to provide the data. One of the things that we take to another level with stacking, if you will, is that we score properties. And so we give things like a probate a higher score than a mowing lien, for example. And then those data points have a shelf life too, where their kind of score dies off over time. As time goes by, it's less kind of hot, if you will. And so effectively in the markets where we operate, there's about 250 markets, we are able to basically score every property in that market from top to bottom, what's most distressed and what's least distressed. And we're updating it, damn near real time, certainly on a weekly basis. And so it's a lot of stuff. I mean, I used to do this myself in Excel, and you're copying and pasting stuff, and you copy and paste something just a little bit wrong, and everything's like screwed up, and you have all these spreadsheets, and you kind of name the tab of this is the probates from October 2021. But stuff happens, and you don't even know you spent a lot of effort gathering this data, and it's outdated, and you skip some months. So a lot of investors will basically, they'll just mail their old data because it's the easiest thing to do. But there's a lot that's changed on there. It doesn't have the newest like stuff that's popped up, and it doesn't have the old stuff removed. And just those two things right there are what will dramatically change your results. So as real estate investors, I think I know people that operate at a high level. I mean, we've got people in my mastermind that do 50 or 60 deals a month, right? These guys are doing like heavy hitters, and lots of people that are doing hundreds of deals a year for sure. And what makes them different? And I look at some of these guys. In fact, I know some of them. I knew them when they were doing 3 deals a month, and now they're doing 30 in some instances. There's a few things that made that change for them. First is mindset, believing they can do it. The second one is, and part of that is getting around the right people. Like I've seen people that have come into our mastermind, and it wasn't me. I've got a lot of experience. I try to help everybody everywhere I can, but it's just the peer-to-peer nature of hearing like what somebody's doing and texting, or with how somebody found their COO, or whatever it might be, and being able to sit down and talk to them and say, how did you do this? Like, can you show me? And people are like an open book. Let me tell you exactly how I did it. So a lot of it's just mindset. The other thing is from a lead generation perspective, from a raising money perspective, like all the parts of our business is doing them just a little bit better. Like most real estate, you've kind of heard this, there's a book out there and there's some conversations around kind of 3 feet from gold. There's a lot of people that are like picking their way through the gold, and they give up, and it was just like right on the other side. They were almost there, but they just didn't know it. There's a lot of real estate investors that are that close, but they just need to do a few things in their business a little bit better, and they'll start to see more dramatic results, improvements.
Love it. Yeah, so true, man. And it's funny seeing, just because you've had InvestorFuel for 4.5 years. When you were talking about that, I was just thinking that I've seen so many people in that same journey that were doing a couple deals a month, and now there are people that are in multiple markets and doing virtual stuff. They're doing 30, 40 deals a month, which is absolutely crazy. But a lot of it is from what Mike is saying, building the belief, getting around those people in the high level masterminds like InvestorFuel, being able to sit down with CEOs and COOs, asking specific questions, but really it comes down to just consistency in the little things.
Yeah. And one thing I'll add to that is, we talk a lot of times, this is like the wisdom in me from being involved for a long time coming out is, and I just made a post on social media today about like, what does financial freedom mean to you? And I think for a lot of people, like, I know you guys believe this at 80-20 is, it's not so much more money. Like I'm just stacking those bills higher. It's not that. It's not the fancy cars. I mean, maybe you can get all that if you want it. For most people, and a lot of people that are in my circles, it's the ability to buy back their time and get that freedom that they got in the business for in the first place. So I can tell you that I know people that are crushing it, making a ton of money, and they're working like 16-hour days. They're just always on and working. And that's great. I mean, that's the season they're in their life, and they're fine. But there are also people that are they're crushing it but they're crushing it in a different way. They're not working as hard as they used to. And they've used those resources of a scaled up business to be able to put a COO in place, to be able to put acquisitions people in place, and be able to run their business maybe even virtually because they've got a team that's got them. And so depending on what you want in your life, like it's really easy in this industry to fall into the trap of like being the hustler that's finally got the Lambo and got all this money and stuff.
Mhm.
If that's what you want, that's fine. I think there's a lot of people that think they want that and then they get there and they're like, that sounds cool, but I'm a little too frugal for that. I would rather just be able to spend more time with my family or travel more or do other things. And so doing all these things a little bit better gets you down that path of being able to scale up your business in a way that gives you your life back, which is why most of us got in this business in the first place.
Yeah, totally agree. And I've heard you talk about it before, saying grinding or hustling is definitely seasonal. It's not an entire thing. That's a good way to get burnt
Right.
out and not enjoy your
Yeah,
day to
for
day and
sure.
moment to moment.
For sure.
Awesome, man. Anything else on kind of like the back end of Investor Machine that you want to share before I kind of ask what it looks like to speak with you and your team about potentially getting started with it?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the other good things that we offer is we have account representatives, and we kind of
Mhm.
refer to it even internally as a white glove approach. And so there are companies out there that you can work with us, marketing or other things, and there's customer support. You can chat in, get an email back or whatever. Like we have real time people that we've trained up to provide a very high level of customer support. We can like so I mentioned we built software to kind of do list stacking on steroids. So we can dive into the back end. We do like account reviews where we can show them here's the type of data we're getting, here's what we're pulling. Sometimes we even tell people to spend less, like we're not getting the type of data that we thought, so we want you to lower your budget a little bit. For us, it's not all about spending more money necessarily. It's about what are your goals and how do you accomplish them, and then
Mhm.
having an account rep that can kind of hold your hand through the process and advise you. We really kind of look at ourselves as a strategic partner in the sense of helping people achieve their goals, not just service that will take all the money that you'll give them. And if it doesn't work out, best of luck to you. Like we really um, build relationships with our customers and have kind of a white glove support there. And so I think there's some real estate investors, a lot of real estate investors, and I'm included in this. Like we learned to do everything on the cheap because we had to make the business work. And so we're super frugal all along the way. But I think for the people that I see that start to operate at a high level, they've kind of moved past that and they value spending more money on something that can help them more in their life. And so there are on supplies and stuff, you should still try to find ways to be cheap. On LASIK surgery for your eyes, you shouldn't want to buy one, get one free surgery. For lead generation, some of the systems you use and things like that, you should be willing to pay more for something if it helps you in your business and helps you get to where you want to be in your life.
100%. Well said. I love the LASIK analogy, and I'll kind of add my own thought to that. That it's more so talking about just being cheap up front because you're going to end up paying more for it on the back end, like everything
Right.
in life. Like if you eat healthy food or nice organic food, whatever high quality food, it's going to be more expensive on the front end, but you're going to have better quality of life and maybe potentially not have as many hospital or doctor visits or whatever negative
Right.
health. It's the same exact thing with your lead generation and so many other things in life that parallels like that. So 100%, Mike.
Yeah, we have a lot of our customers have said, and they even use our data. So I'm not talking about anybody that provides a texting service or cold calling or anything like that. Even using our data on the mail side, because mail is highly targeted, right? And the
Yeah.
skip tracing and cold calling can be a lot of people because it's cheaper to get started. A lot of people just pull lists for like the entire county or like huge lists, right? So some of our customers that are good friends of mine have told me that their kind of profit on direct mail deals is 2 to 3 times higher than what it is on cold calling. And it makes sense. We're targeting people that we know have a high level of distress. Like we kind of have a cheat code, right? Like we figured out like how to find the people that probably need us the most right now. If you're blanket cold calling or texting, it appears to be cheaper up front. I think what a lot of people have realized is, yeah, the data is cheap, the dialers are cheap, the systems that you can get are cheap. The expensive part is having a revolving door of people that are being told F off all day long. And you have to
Mm.
keep training people up and hiring them and wondering if they're even calling today and kind of managing a call, like basically a sales floor, right? And so that is burdensome for a lot of owners. But also what happens is inevitably with texting and cold calling, those folks didn't ask to be contacted. Like with direct mail, they responded. It was a direct response to something they got. And if you get a lead from that, it tends to be a higher quality than you connecting with somebody that didn't even ask to be contacted. And sometimes they'll turn into a sale. I'm not saying that it doesn't turn into sales for sure. They're typically a lot earlier in the sales cycle. The reason they haven't contacted you yet is they weren't ready yet. Most often, it's very rare that you're texting or cold calling somebody and they're like, I just decided at breakfast in the morning I'm going to sell my house. Today's your lucky day. Like that doesn't happen, right? But with mail, when it comes back, you're more likely to get that. Like they're at the point where they reached out, and it's the same for pay-per-click too. They reached out to you because they're ready to go, or they're closer to ready to go, right?
Mm-hmm. Do you have any metrics or KPIs, Mike, just for someone that is doing direct mail somewhat consistently, where they can see if they're kind of in a healthy range, whether that's cost per deal or response rate? I know that that's going to be market to market, but anything that you can share just because you're, with so many companies in the mastermind.
So we don't have that because the numbers don't pass through us. They go direct to our members. And so we talk to them regularly. How are things going? Like, what does your cost per deal look like? And we're getting started at trying to track that. The other thing that is kind of crazy that we're in the process of integrating right now and rolling out is we've actually been working on an AI project for about a year where they can plug if you're using CallRail or most of the more common calling systems, they can plug it into our API, our AI system that we've basically subscribed to from a technology company, and it'll rate the call. So it gives a lot of feedback to our members, our customers, on how their calls are being answered, how they're being handled. But it also can listen and score the quality of the call, so we can put that back into our data and start to do some pretty amazing things with how it impacts all of our data. Like we can kind of learn, do some machine learning about how each call in any market is impacting the data across the country and do some pretty crazy things. But it'll also allow us to start to have a little bit more of reporting on how our members are doing. So if they say, we're really struggling right now, and we can look up and say, well, you're not answering your calls live, like they're all going to voicemail or whatever, or the quality of the call of the person on the call, it actually tells the person who answered the call, like, don't say this again, say this instead. Like, AI is a little bit scary as to how that stuff works, but we have some pretty cool things coming. And, one of the things that you said about working with somebody that does this for a living, right? There's no individual real estate investor that could even come close to affording this, the AI solution that we're buying into, let alone, having a support team and all that stuff. So as we grow, as we scale, we're able to do some really amazing things based on our learning to stay on the cutting edge to the point to where, no individual investor could ever do what we're doing as well as we do, because that's not their core business, right?
Yeah.
So we just get better with time, basically.
Love it. I want to hear, I know I'm going to have him on the podcast as well, but quick intro on Jason, who's the co-founder of InvestorMachine, like his background. I know he's one of the bigger wholesalers in Utah that you mentioned, but just to kind of hear how he mixes in with you.
Yeah. So Jason, the way we met ultimately is he joined InvestorFuel as a member, and probably about 3 years ago. Actually, we're right at 3 years ago. It was a meeting in Salt Lake City, which is actually where he's based at. And so he joined then and has been a member all along. On his very first meeting, we sat at dinner together and started talking about what we were working on. He actually was doing really wasn't a service. He was helping a couple friends with lead generation and doing some unique things. And I had been thinking for years through my coaching and stuff about offering a done for you advertising service, but I just didn't want like the burden. Like I'm not, for those of you that follow PI or anything like that, I'm a maverick. I'm a quick start type guy, slow finish type guy. I'm a more of a true visionary, right? And I knew kind of operationally that I didn't have the team that I needed or the pieces in place to kind of handle the back end side of an agency. And Jason did. And so, and I had distribution. So I had a lot of relationships with people from a business standpoint. I knew that if we could offer this and it was high quality, that we would be off to the races. And so I kind of say it was like peanut butter and jelly coming together that first few days we were together, because every time we had a break or anything else, we would say like, hey, tell me more about this. And we just kind of kept talking about what we were doing or what we could do. And that's where we started. And so InvestorMachine was formally launched the summer of 2019 as like a beta test in the Dallas Fort Worth market where I'm at. And it was a steep learning curve because the advertising wasn't such a big deal, but at the time we were offering like, we'll take your phone calls for you, we'll do the texting for you. We were hiring driving for dollars people in the market, all kinds of stuff. This was very, very difficult. It was like everybody loved that we were doing it because it was amazing, but it just wasn't a sustainable business model.
Mm-hmm.
We were taking people's calls and trying to schedule calls for them. And that was just where, like, even at the time we had like 10 people in the beta test, or maybe 8. And, trying to manage 8 people's calendar, let alone several hundred, it was tough at that level. So we ended up changing our model around a little bit, changing our fee structure, and then formally launched in beginning of 2020 nationwide, and with kind of the model that we have now, which has been working pretty well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's
good friends. We've really built. My wife got started early on. We initially had her help us build out some stuff in Podio, and that turned into, she's working just as hard as any of us and has been a big part of that. But Jason and I have become good friends. We built something amazing, like way bigger and way more impactful than what we ever thought it could be early on. And now we've got, we're pushing nearly 100 employees. We just have a pretty big operation that's kind of behind everything that we do.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And that's the whole point of living, doing fulfilling stuff that's leaving an impact once you're no longer here. I told you before this, I'm kind of just putting out into the ether. I'm hoping I can be at some type of InvestorFuel event, just because they have a lot of quality people like Mike and everybody that's in there. I have everything in the show notes for you guys as far as InvestorMachine, InvestorFuel. What's the best place to follow you or reach out to your team if it's not those links?
Yeah, those links are really how it gets started. So if you use the links, which you might have a slightly different one, Carlos, I don't want to overstep on that, but if you use the links down below, what happens for both of those, for InvestorMachine, inevitably, there's a short video that we have, a 15-minute kind of demo on how our system works. And truthfully, a lot of what I shared with you today will be repetitive in that. But if you opt into that video, right below the video, you'll have the ability as a Calendly area where you can schedule a call with our team and talk about it. And same thing for InvestorFuel. I don't believe we have a VSL there. It's more of just scheduling a call with our team to talk about it. And I've got a pretty veteran team. I mean, most of the people that are on my team that are helping with bringing on new customers are active investors, have done hundreds, if not thousands of deals. And so they really understand your business. And so we're not looking to just bring anybody on for either InvestorFuel or InvestorMachine. We're really looking for people that are, they appreciate what we do for them. They're serious about the business. We're not trying to bring people in and out and be very transient. We're really trying to build long-term relationships with people. And so sometimes, and we had a meeting today with my sales team, and there was somebody that was very, very difficult on the upfront. And I said, that doesn't sound like that would be a customer that would even be good for us. So let's just cut them loose before he even becomes a customer, right? We're really looking for high quality people that understand that there's ups and downs, understand there's no silver bullet. I mean, we've talked about some great things here today, but it's still hard right now, right? And so we're trying to make it just a little bit easier and a little bit better than anybody else. But yeah, just go to those links that Carlos is going to share with you, schedule some time to talk to me or my team, and we're happy to help tell you a little bit more about it, answer your questions, and see if we're a fit for you and vice versa.
Awesome. Yeah, could not give a better, stronger recommendation for InvestorMachine and InvestorFuel. InvestorMachine is definitely a big partner for us as far as a top lead gen resource that we're sharing with our members, both in the mastermind and InvestorFuse community. I will also suggest following Mike on Facebook. He's had some awesome posts, the financial freedom one he mentioned today. One I want to bring up to kind of put a bow on this interview is, if you don't mind me sharing, and asked before we started recording, but you shared that you recently started a gratitude journal, which is some of my favorite things that I talk about as far as like intentional subconscious programming. And it speaks exactly to the small, consistent things that you do on a day-to-day can really change you in the long term. And I have some modules for this in our mastermind as well, talk about creating these kind of stacks. But man, if you're at this point in your life and unlocking a new higher level of you, I'm very excited to see what you have in the future. But if you want to speak to that as far as just starting a gratitude journal, this year and how that's affected you, I guess.
Yeah, I just started maybe 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago now. And again, I say, it's not like I had no gratitude before that. I just didn't have the process down of rolling out of bed. And it's like, I don't always follow this exactly, but I have done it every single day. There have been once or twice where it's kind of the evening. I'm like, I didn't do it yet, but I try to do it right when I roll out of bed in the morning. And, what I've been doing lately is just like, I would say, I gave an example, I think, in that post of, it's easy for me to say that I'm grateful for my wife because she's amazing. We've been married for 17 years. And I could say that I'm grateful for my wife, but I kind of took it to another level. And I really just write a couple of sentences, maybe sometimes one, but why I'm grateful for that person. I think it's really easy to say that I'm grateful for warm weather or something. But I think just little things, like I could say I'm grateful for my wife. I'm actually out of town right now. My wife is holding down the fort, and up here visiting my mom, who's having some health issues. But I'm grateful for my wife for going through this week, because I know it's difficult with kids and all the stuff. I'm not there to kind of help with my tasks, and kind of why I'm grateful for her. And it just starts to make me realize I'm kind of paying attention more now to the little things in my life. And I'm early on in my journey here, but I can already tell a difference of kind of noticing the little things. And for me, I'm kind of operating at a level where it's real easy to blow past the little things and just like be looking down the line, But I've noticed a difference already. I think it's a pretty good habit that I'm hoping to stick with here for a long time.
Love it, man. And as someone that advocates that very strongly, I'm far from perfect, but I'm excited for you, because that is a massive, massive lever that just allows you to kind of move through life a lot more, or being a lot more methodical and a lot more finesse. Very similar to the lead gen, done for you lead gen from InvestorMachine.
Yeah, and I think the way that just the world has been the past couple of years, it's easy to get down on everything, but I think especially people that are listening to this show, we have so much to be grateful for, and obviously people outside of the show have a lot to be grateful for too. But if you're a real estate investor and you're an entrepreneur that's kind of made it to some level of independence, you can improve for sure wherever you're at. But we have so much to be grateful for, that I think just thinking those things, it's really easy to kind of, if you watch the news or anything, which I try not to, but if you watch those things, it's just so many things that can bring you down these days. So if you focus on the positive things and gratitude around those things, then I think you'll see a difference in your life.
Well said, man. Couldn't agree more. Check the links in the show notes, guys. If you guys are even thinking of doing direct mail, definitely check out InvestorMachine. If you're looking for a high-level mastermind connecting with different levels depending on your experience, check out InvestorFuel as well. Mike, man, appreciate you, how you show up in the world, and looking forward to talking, man. Hopefully we'll be at a mastermind here in a couple of months, see each other in person again.
Sounds good, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time. Thanks for allowing me to share my story. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.